Our Wyopreps Athlete of the Week feature continues here as we're kind of bridging the gap from the end of fall sports before we start winter sports season, looking back at some of the great state championship performances from earlier in the month of November. And of course, it's all brought to you by our great friends at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming and Laramie. For the third time in the last 4 seasons, the Class 4A volleyball state champions. They had to work a little more for it this time around. I'm joined by junior Mashawn Sailors, who had a fantastic weekend at the state tournament. Been a few weeks. Has it finally sunk in that you won a state title for the first time in your career?
Yeah, it's been very rewarding and like everyone around me has been very exciting with it and supportive. So it's been nice.
What do you think? Take me back to that weekend in Casper. You ended up with a 3-1 win in the first round, got pushed in the semis by a really good Cody team, and then obviously pushed again in the championship. What were some of the keys that allowed you young ladies to win a state title this year, you think?
I think we really focused on like being like good teammates to one another and making sure we were all like supporting one another and like staying positive and like having lots of energy, but in the right way, not in like an obnoxious way, and like just being good towards each other.
Gotcha. Were there certain points where you felt like it could go the other direction in a bad way, unfortunately?
Yeah, there was a few times where I was worried about like the score and like what we're doing, but we ended up pushing through it and like working our butts off to get to that point. So I think we ended up pushing very well at the end.
Take me through the championship. You're up 2-0 pretty quickly. I know the second set was maybe a little more competitive, but then you ended up almost with match point there in the third set, and then all of a sudden it's in a fifth set. What's going through your mind there? And then how did you close it out, I guess?
There's obviously lots of stress involved with it. And I don't know, like we definitely had to focus more on like our side of the court and like our volleyball because we made lots of errors going into like the third, fourth, and fifth set. And like we just started making more errors. And like I think we just needed to refocus up and like figure out step by step, like what things to do. So, yeah.
Was it something that Coach Stuckey said, or was it amongst the players that maybe keyed that little push at the end of the fifth set to clinch the title?
I think it was kind of both. I think we all like knew how much we wanted it and like how far we've worked in for this. And then Jill kind of like put it in play and like told us that like we've done all this for nothing and not for nothing, but like we've done all this like to get there. And so I think we're all just really excited to be at that point and be at like a more competitive spot. And so it was fun. And then I think we just needed to push through it.
Well, you got pushed a couple times throughout the course of the season in different ways. But was the loss at regionals almost kind of I guess maybe a hidden motivation for you young ladies? I know it ruined the perfect season and everything, but you ended up finishing 33-1. You got the title. Was that maybe a little revenge factor in the title match?
Yeah, I think the loss like got us more like angry in a way, but I think it did help us a bit. Like, like obviously wanted that grit to beat them like later on throughout like state, and we didn't know when we'd play them, but we kind of had a feeling it'd be towards the end. And yeah, I think losing a game did help us and like made us kind of like refocus and like, okay, we are beatable, but we need to get to that point to beat them. So yeah.
You put up some good numbers throughout all 3 matches of the weekend at state. What was working for you in terms of your connection with Maddie or whoever was setting you?
I think that like we just had the like integrity and like passion. Like we just like we had this like we had a lot of talks, like me and Maddie specifically, of like what we're gonna do. And like we did a lot of like focusing on the other team and like figuring out what like spots to hit and all that. And so we just connected super well, and like I found her when I was like no matter where I was on the court. And so it just ended up working out pretty good.
Obviously, you young ladies, and I think I talked to you during the season, and obviously your teammates during the season had a big target on your back. You were the favorite all year long. How did it feel to kind of pay it off to get that title in terms of, yeah, we were the favorite, but nobody could really take us down when it mattered the most? How did that feel?
It felt really good. Like I know like there's teams who were like, oh, like saying that we were cocky and stuff like that. Like that was obviously out there and whatever. But I think we just like we were able to show like that we are all very good volleyball players, and we were all able to make that state championship like an important game, but also like show that we were the ones to win.
Well, congratulations on a title, your first, but again, the third for Laramie in the last 4 seasons in Class 4A. And I appreciate you taking some time today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
On. We're continuing here at Wyopreps to spotlight some great championship performances from the month of November in our Athlete of the Week features as we kind of bridge between the end of fall and the start of winter sports. And our 4A Boys Athlete of the Week this week is not just an individual, but it's a team this week. It's the Sheridan Broncs, who had their second three-peat in 4A football since 2015, joined by the head coach, Jeff Mowry. And Jeff, congratulations again. I think I've told you that a number of times now since the championship game finished in Laramie earlier this month. But talk a little bit about another three-peat for the Broncs. I got to ask you, what's in the Kool-Aid? What's in the water in Sheridan these days that are allowing you guys to three-peat?
Yeah, thanks, David. I appreciate it. You know, we had a group of young men that just worked incredibly hard, and from the first day of fall camp on August 7th till the last day in November in War Memorial, our team just continued to get better, and they just got better and better every single day. Talking with the coaches after the season, it was a group of young men that led by 19 seniors that worked incredibly hard, and we rarely had to coach effort. We just had a great group that showed up to practice and wanted to get better every single day. And they had guys within the team that would push each other and they'd hold each other accountable. And they came to practice, and our coaches did a great job of continuing to coach technique and get them better. And you could see what happens when you have a buy-in from a great group of men and coaches that know the game of football. And we feel like we did a good job putting them in positions to make plays, and they just continue to make play after play and ended up in a good spot.
How much do you attribute the Bronc football team's success as a program to what's happened in the last 15, 17, 18 years, just the culture that's created, and then that just kind of raises up as you grow up in that community, Jeff?
Yeah, you're exactly right, David. You know, it goes way back before 15 years ago. You know, a three-peat's pretty impressive, but many of our players' dads were on the four-peat in the 90s. And so we haven't done anything yet. So even beyond the early 90s, it goes way beyond that with Scotty Scott, who we recently lost. And the culture of Bronc football is, you know, we have 30 high school state championships in Sheridan, and there's a culture of excellence in football that's expected here. And it's in the community, it's in the school, it's in the program. It's just that expectation. And I love that expectation. I don't know why you'd want to be in a place where there's not an expectation of excellence. And guys have to go out and earn that every single year. And our guys grow up wanting to be Broncs. They look up to the Broncs, and when they finally get here, they want to capitalize on their opportunity to be a Bronc. And it's really a fun thing to be a part of.
You mentioned how far it does go back. Talk a little bit about dealing with that pressure at the same time and how these young men do a good job of kind of keeping themselves level-headed. And as you mentioned, putting forth that effort to get better day by day, week by week.
Yeah, there's a real focus on the process. You know, you can't be great, you know, in November unless you're doing a great job today and you're continuing to get better today. And if you want to be great in November, it doesn't happen on November 10th that you become great on November 11th. It's a lot of work that goes into it. And you know, that's something we focus on a lot, and we'll start talking to next year's seniors about how to become leaders and what they have to do. And we're not going to wait till August of next year to start this senior campaign. We've got to start teaching these young men how to be great leaders, and it doesn't happen overnight. So we put in a lot of time, and we talk to the guys constantly about, you know, how did you get better today? How did you get better in this drill? How did you get better in algebra class this afternoon? What did you do today that helped you become better? Because if you're not doing anything, others are catching you. You're actually getting worse. You're getting bypassed. And so you've got to become a better young man today, and again tomorrow and the next day. And so if you focus on the pressure of, you know, 30 state championships, a three-peat, a lot of wins in a row, and if you think about that stuff, you're going to get consumed by it. But really, today's not any different than yesterday, and our team this year wasn't any different than they were 4 years ago. We've got to continue to work on today and get better today.
You've had a lot of star players in terms of star power, guys, household names like a Dane Steele and Alex Haswell, and congratulations to both them on the offensive and defensive player of the year honors for Dane, and for Alex, the lineman of the year. You were a coach of the year, but you had to have some unsung heroes along the way that maybe don't get that name recognition. And I'm not trying to tell you to single any guys out or anything, but who are some of the guys that maybe don't get enough credit from your perspective as a coach?
You know, I think one of the great parts of what's going on in our program right now is if you asked Alex and Dane, they could list 72 other names that would go right beside theirs, and they would put theirs ahead of themselves. And I think that's the great part about, great players like you listed there above. And, Alex is a phenomenal player. He's an offensive lineman that as a sophomore, we moved from tight end and we moved him down to the offensive line. And that was a hard thing for him, but he made the unselfish decision. We needed a tackle more than we needed a tight end. And he made that move and understood that. And we have guys that do that. We had Colin Custis as a senior center this year and middle linebacker. He was a running back a year ago. And in June at our mini camp, we said, you know what, Colin, we need some help with the offensive line. Do you think you'd make that transition? And his response was, yeah, coach, whatever the team needs. And he went in and then started 12 games at center, never playing center before this year. And he started 12 games and did a phenomenal job. And we have guys like that continually do that same thing. Jacob Ormseth was a wideout receiver. Jackson Lynn, wideout receiver. Beck Haswell goes down at tight end, and we need guys to play tight end. They've never blocked before. And Jackson Lynn, the last 2 weeks of his high school career, played tight end because we needed him to. And he went out and did it and did a phenomenal job at it. And so it's a lot of those guys that do the same thing that are sophomores, juniors, and seniors. The scout team, you're not going to see them on the highlight film, and you're not going to see them on the film from November. But what they did on Monday through Thursday every single week to go get our guys ready, they replicated other teams' offenses and defenses as best as they could, and they put our older guys in a spot to be successful. And so there's really a lot of things that go into creating a great team. And Alex and Dane, you mentioned those two, and they're receiving some big awards. They don't receive those big awards unless it's for everybody else. And the great part about those guys and our team right now is they understand that an individual award doesn't matter unless you have everybody who goes along with it. And there's a lot of guys that get named All-State, and our guys are happy to be named All-State, but really more than anything, they want to be called the state champion.
Well, you've won 3 in a row. You've had some time to let it sink in. Think back to what happened November 11th in Laramie, and how, looking back at the film, how did your guys handle, especially adjusting in the game when it's 7-3 and it could teeter either way? How did you take control of that game, and what else have you reflected on in terms of winning that championship?
I think that one of the biggest things I reflected on now and then at halftime was the first 2 offensive series we had were absolutely very poorly called by the offensive coordinator, who's me. So we took a delay of game on the very first play because I didn't have things ready to roll. And then we went 3 and out twice, which we didn't do 3 and out the rest of the game or very often this year. And I'll take the credit for those 2 3 and outs. I did not do a good job, but our guys didn't get frustrated. They continued to play. Our defense did a phenomenal job, holding Cheyenne East, a team that averages 50 points to 3 points, was incredible. And that allowed our offense to get things going. And our guys that were patient with me said, Coach, where are these calls coming from? And so we went in at halftime and we adjusted, and we said, you know what? I got to look back at my call sheet. I got to look back at what we saw in the film that we could highlight. And in the second half, you saw us come out and do that, and they believed in it. There wasn't a doubt in the locker room about my play calls the first 2 series, even though they probably should have had some doubts. They believed in it, and we believed in them, and they believed in the process. And so we just continued to work, and our guys just don't panic, and they didn't panic. And so we've got to continue to do that if we want to continue to be successful.
Lastly, another undefeated season. That's 2 in a row for this group, and I know you're on a big, long winning streak, approaching a state record, and I know you not necessarily thinking about that at this point in time, but to go undefeated back-to-back years, how tough is that in 4A football for those of us in the media that look at it and go, I don't know how they won this game or that game, or from out around the state? How have you guys, in your opinion, Jeff, been able to rattle off 2 straight undefeated seasons in 4A football?
I think that we've been very fortunate. Number one, you look back at the last 2 and a half seasons, and we've won a lot of close ball games, especially a year ago. We won a lot of them in the last minute or something like that. So we've had some things go our way. We've been very, very fortunate in some games like that where we've won some turnover battles. We've had some big plays or some big opportunities that we've taken advantage of. We've been incredibly fortunate with the staff of Sheridan High School, and we've had consistency within the staff. We're incredibly fortunate with the players that we have. You mentioned some names. You're from Laramie and you're in the media, but those are names that you recognize in a Dane Steele and Alex Haswell, a Colson Kuhn, and there are names that people recognize, and we're fortunate to have those young men, and we're fortunate to have guys that believe in the program, not in just themselves, and those guys that people know the names of, they want to be Broncs, and they wear the Bronc name on their chest more proudly than they wear their last name. And so it's a great thing that we've been fortunate to be a part of, and we're just lucky to be here and lucky to have kids that buy into the program and do things right.
Jeff, thank you so much for the time, and again, congratulations, and appreciate you taking time to chat with me today.
Thanks, David. Appreciate your coverage.